So let's move on to Dark Side of the Moon. You worked on Dark Side of the Moon with that, and they always a very experimental band, right from the get-go. If
ever there was a band for an aspiring engineer to work with, it's Pink Floyd, because I mean they if they make a good record, they make you look good as an engineer.
Yeah.
I'm commonly referred to as the producer of Dark Side of the Moon. I wasn't. I was very much an engineer and pretty new to engineering as well. I mean, I was still, how old was I? 24 when I started working with Floyd. So, but of course, I mean, a great experience. I think in the early days of the recording of the tracks of the album, they treated me with some suspicion, some, you know, can this dude do the job, you know? Yeah. But as time went on, we became a really good team, and they started to trust what I did.
I've known Roger now for 30 years, and
it's almost as long as I've known him. I'm a little ahead of you.
Well, I have found him to be, despite what people may hear about, you know, one of the most loyal friends I've ever had. Yeah. The guy is become an extraordinarily loyal person and friend. And I've got to watch him up close when I was on tour with him for Radio Chaos and worked with him on that. Cool. And
Great job, by the way.
Well, I was, you know, right place, right time. He called me up when he was making the album. He goes, I'm making this new record, and there's a character on the record named Jim. He's a disc jockey in Los Angeles, and he's fighting for Freeform Radio. Do you know where I could find someone like that? So, but yeah, I mean, I never in my wildest dreams thought I would be working with him. But to see him and his mind work night after night, and how he is kind of in charge of everything. I don't know if he was like that back then, but you know, if it's like, for example, The Wall's coming to town here, if it's on stage, he approved it. There's nobody he just assigns stuff to. Was he kind of like that back then?
I think, I mean, there was no question he wrote Dark Side of the Moon. I mean, he wrote the songs and the lyrics, of course. When he had a job to do, then he would you know, lean towards usually David to become the boss, you know, to direct him. It's quite difficult to perform and produce at the same time. You need somebody that tells you what to do.
And if it's sounding good, yeah.
Yeah, but interestingly, he did very little singing on Dark Side of the Moon. Yeah. The Lunatic is the first song that you hear when it's Roger. Everything else up to that moment is David. Yeah. Which is, you know, a little known or a little observed fact.
But the way that those two voices counterpoint each other, David's very ethereal, you know, it's almost like a dream, and the angst and edge that Roger puts into it, it's an extraordinary combination, and they always seem to figure out exactly how to use it correctly, even if it was laying back until brain damage, right?
They were getting on very well then. I mean, they were friends. They enjoyed the experience of recording back then.
Good.
And it's a shame that, you know, that changed.
You got to tell the cash register story. I love this, how you got the sounds at the beginning of Money.
The time of the recording of Dark Side of the Moon, the new buzzword was quadraphonic. Mm-hmm. And the demo that they'd done of Money contained these random sounds chopped up to form a loop, and it was fairly rough and ready. It didn't really sound very good. So we decided to start again, and we wanted to make it sound good in quad, so that these sounds would actually walk around the room, you know, one speaker to the next. So we got a combination of sounds, some from sound effects libraries, some we actually made ourselves. We throw handfuls of money into the air. That's one of the sounds. Tearing up a $100 bill. No, not really. And one of the sounds was actually a telephone exchange sound.
Right.
but it just seemed to sound right, seemed to have the right feel for it. But we started splicing these sounds together, and that's the way you had to do it those days. You would cut tape and glue it together. But we discovered quite quickly that it would only be correct rhythmically if each sound lasted exactly a certain amount of time. So we had to physically get a wooden ruler out and measure the tape exactly, 5 7/8 inches.
Wow.
for each sound. And the 7 sounds which make up the loop were then spliced back together so that they ran in a circular loop. And you put it on a tape machine and use mic stands as tape guides. And that loop just played while they played the intro to the song.
So you had to adjust the tension of the mic stand so the tape wouldn't stretch or be too. Man, I mean nowadays with people who
if you did it in Pro Tools now, it would take 10 minutes.
So you literally took a ruler and a piece of tape. And that's extraordinary.
And you had to mark the beginning of the sound with a chalk pencil,
right? And
then measure exactly 5 7/8 inches after that, and splice them together.
Man, I think it gives me even more appreciation now that I know it was that difficult to do. Well, let's talk about the sound effects at the beginning of the song "Time" with the great clock montage that you have. How did you get that?
Well, originally the intro to "Time" was just the clicky bass sound, the damped click, and I pointed out to the Floyd that I'd quite recently recorded some clocks in a local antique shop, just a couple of miles away from Abbey Road, and I suggested that these clocks synchronized, striking all at the same time and ticking and ticking away before that would make a good introduction to the song. And I played them this montage of clocks that I'd recorded, and they loved it. And they said, "Yeah, let's do it. Let's put it on the intro." So there was a little bit of me that made it to the record.
It's one of the most iconic sound effects ever recorded, really, not just rock and roll. I mean, everybody knows what that is the second that you hear it. Now,
the alarm clocks, I think, came from somewhere else. I think they came from probably, I think it might have even been my own alarm clock. I don't actually remember, but the antique shop wouldn't have had alarm clocks.
No.
But there were cuckoo clocks, which we didn't use.
Who had the job of synchronizing the clocks?
Oh, that was me.
Oh, dear God.
Because, well, yes, it was tough because, I made it easy for myself by, the first thing I did when I got to the antique shop was say, "Can you just stop all the clocks?" And so each clock was recorded, one at a time, ticking, and then I said, "Right, okay, now make it chime," and he moved the hands forward and make it chime. Then it is quite tough to assemble it on a multi-track tape so that all the chiming happened at exactly the same time.
And it's just this wonderful cacophony of sound, and also the way that it kind of, when it's, they start to fade is like a perfect fade too, because it doesn't just stop. These clocks fade down, and then you're into the song, and it really works.
That was part of the mixing job, of course. I think they probably, on the original multi-track, they tick away and chime away for a bit longer, but it's just the timing of the fade.
Final question on Dark Side before we move on to your solo career. Some fans wanted to know your thoughts on this urban legend that's been going around about playing Dark Side of the Moon, syncing it up to The Wizard of Oz. Do you have any thoughts on that?
They got it wrong. It was Mary Poppins, not The Wizard.
I see. That's why it didn't work for me when I tried it at home. Okay, Mary Poppins, thank you. Because Julie Andrews and Roger Waters is the pair that I always think of when I...
You have to think that, VCRs barely existed in 1972, so I mean, what would we have sunk it up to?
Right. No, somebody did this years and years and years later.
But much too much time on this.
There you go.